Okay, I know that I'm live. I don't know if I came back on the same live. I'm sorry, y'all. My so much storage. Let me just tell y'all, I want to wait till some of y'all come back so that you can get this word on what just happened. Okay, I'm back. I'm back. Let me make sure that you're here with me? Are you on with me? Somebody let me know. I'm here. Okay, can you hear me? Let me see. Yeah, can you hear me now? You're on the same live. Great. Okay. Still freezing a bit though. Okay. I'm sorry about that, Grace. Could be my location. All right. I'm on and I'm back on the same live. You see me. It's the same live. Yes. Okay. Y'all, let me tell you what just happened. So I was reading the section. I'm not suggesting this is coincidence. I am lifting it as a symbol, right? So I was reading the section about unhealed trauma and how over long periods of times, as it is passed on, it gets compounded through other bodies in a household. It can become a family norm. And if it gets transmitted and compounded through multiple families and generations, it can look like culture. Well, what happened in that moment is I got interrupted because my phone said that my iPhone doesn't have enough storage to keep recording. It says that my iPhone doesn't have enough storage to keep recording. Now, that's symbolic to me, and I hope that I've just deleted enough to be able to make it through this recording. So I'm going to finish my sentence, and I'm going to put up a Zoom link, because if it happens again, we're just going to go over to Zoom, over to the clearing. Symbolically for me, that is what I've been experiencing in my body. Jesus, my God, today. Yeah, my God. That my body has run out of storage. That my body has run out of storage and can no longer hold, and so it begins to shut down. This is the message that I just received on the iPhone. It stopped recording because it said that my storage is full. And when I went over to begin deleting some things from the storage so that I can hurry up and get back over you, I'd realized that maybe me or my children, because we share some devices, had downloaded a lot of videos that I was not familiar with. So think of these videos as tapes, right? And they are running in the background system, and they are taking up this storage. And I don't even know, oh my God, today, and I don't even know what these videos are. Remember, sometimes you can have that hazy trauma and you don't even know where the trauma came from or where you picked up the trauma. I don't even know what these videos are, what these movies are. So I had to delete those videos because they were taking up too much space. I wish y'all can see my shirt today. It says take up space because they were taking up too much space. And then I had to offload some of my apps. Y'all don't hear me today. Y'all don't hear me today. I had to offload, for those of you who have iPhones, I had to offload some of the apps. Offload means that you need to take them out of your active use so that they are not taking up storage, and you go get them when you need them. Jesus. Yes, Dr. Chayla. So I'm running stories. We're all running stories unconsciously in our body. The fact that that just happened right at this space is serendipitous. I mean, I'm thankful for the message. I receive it. I get it, right? And so now what I need to do right after this is do a deep dive on my storage. And can I tell y'all something else? Can I tell y'all something? Mama Carolyn is here. Can I tell y'all something else? Every time I go to try to to try to clean this storage out, I'm always like, nah, I need that. I need that. I need that. Yeah, I ain't gonna offload that because something might happen and I need that. So before we go any further with finishing, I am going to go ahead and open up just 1 second so that our digideacons can provide for us. My God, ooh, what a word, Jesus. Okay, it is in the Facebook chat, and so I guess you, Carly, and others will come grab it for YouTube. I will put it up again, but right now I just put the link for the clearing up in the Facebook chat. So if we get disconnected, just come on right over there. Ashe, just come right over there. Okay, I'm gonna put it in one more time. Ashe, Ashe. My God, y'all. My God is what I can say. Whew, a word. Okay, I'm gonna pick back up where I left off. But it isn't culture. It's a traumatic retention. So if the trauma gets transmitted and compounded through multiple families and generations, it can start to look like culture. But it isn't culture. It's a traumatic retention that has lost its context over time. Y'all, did y'all hear that? So you know how we talk about African retentions? This is a traumatic retention. Carryovers that we bring with us into relationships, platonic, professional, intimate, spiritual. It's not culture. I am who I am. It's not, black people, let me tell you something. One thing black people gonna do is they gonna tell you. It's not culture. It's a traumatic retention. Ashe. It is a traumatic retention that has lost its context over time. It is a traumatic attention. Do y'all retention? Though without context, it has not lost its power. Traumatic retentions can have a profound effect on what we do, think, feel, believe, experience, and find meaningful. What we call out as individual personality flaws, dysfunctional family dynamics, or twisted cultural norms are sometimes manifestations of historical trauma. These traumatic retentions may have served a purpose at one time, provided protection, supported resilience, inspired hope, etc. But generations later, when adaptations continue to be acted out in situations where they are no longer necessary or helpful, they get defined as dysfunctional behavior on the individual, family, or cultural level. Yeah. The transference of trauma isn't just about how human beings treat each other. Trauma can also be inherited genetically. Now, this is what therapist Angel was sharing with us earlier, okay? The transference of trauma isn't just about how human beings treat each other. Trauma can also be inherited genetically. Recent work in genetics has revealed that trauma can change the expression of the DNA in our cells, and these changes can be passed from parent to child. And it gets weirder. We now have evidence that memories connected to painful events also get passed down from one parent to child and to that child's child. What's more, these experiences appear to be held, passed on, and inherited in the body, not just in the thinking brain. Often, people experience this as a persistent sense of imminent doom, the trauma ghosting, like when is the other shoe gonna drop? We are only beginning to understand how the process works, and there are a lot of details we don't know yet. Having said that, here is what we do know so far. That a fetus growing inside the womb of a traumatized mother may inherit some of that trauma in its DNA expression. This results in the repeated release of stress hormones, which may affect the nervous system of the developing fetus. Or a man with unhealed trauma in his body may produce sperm with altered DNA expression. These, in turn, may inhibit the healthy functioning of cells in his children. Or trauma can alter the DNA expression of a child or grandchild's brain, causing a wide range of health and mental health issues, including memory loss, chronic anxiety, muscle weakness, and depression. Or some of these effects seem particularly prevalent among African Americans, Jews, and American Indians, 3 groups who have experienced an enormous amount of historical trauma. Now, the researcher in me, I need to read the footnote. The research has led to the creation of a new field of scientific inquiry known as epigenetics. That's spelled EPIGENETICS, epigenetics, the study of inheritable changes in gene expression. Epigenetics has transformed the way scientists think about genomes. The first study to clearly show that stress can cause inheritable gene defects in humans was published in 2015. So for those of you who have the book, I want you to read the footnote on page 40. Some scientists theorize this genetic alteration may be a way to protect later generations. Essentially, genetic changes train our descendants' bodies through heredity rather than behavior. This suggests that what we call genetic defects may actually be ways to increase our descendants' odds of survival in a potentially dangerous environment by relaying hormonal information to the fetus in the womb. The womb itself is an environment, a watery world of sounds, movement, and human biochemicals. Recent research suggests that during the last trimester of pregnancy, fetuses in the womb can learn and remember just as well as newborns. This is amazing. Part of what they may learn based on what their mothers go through during pregnancy is whether the world outside of the womb is safe and healthy and dangerous and toxic. Okay, so when I was carrying Free, when Free was born, my mom, she was just some days old, and she used to have her fist balled up like this, and just when she would cry, she would just shake and just I mean, there was just like it was hard to calm her down. And my mother said, try unballing her fist, like open up her hands. She just looked like she just had so much trauma. And certainly we didn't know about this. We didn't have this study. This study wasn't even out when Free was born. And so I got offended with my mom because I was like, what you saying? Like that I have passed on something to her? And she said, no, it's just that she's so just balled up. She's so wound up. Like, it could be because, you had a miscarriage before and you had that fear in your body that you were, I want this pregnancy to go to term. I want her to be healthy. And then other things that you're just carrying, my mother said this in 2007, that you could be, passing this her. And even today, right, she still has that kind of energy, right? That if she needs to know what's going on, she needs to know what's happening. She has to have order. She has to be in control. I still see that kind of energy. And I can totally see me passing that down, that type of trauma to her, because as a trauma response, being in control is a trauma response for me. Ashe, I don't know, maybe for some of you all, but it's a trauma response for me. And so that need, and when I feel out of control, when I feel like I cannot control what's next, then it brings forth anxiety. Ashe, right? Okay. The womb is itself an environment, a watery world of sounds, movement, and human biochemicals. Recent research suggests that during the last, I just read this. If the fetus's mother is relatively happy and healthy during her pregnancy, and if she has a nervous system that is settled, so this is the goal, y'all. The goal is for us to have a nervous system that is settled. That's the goal. That's what we want peace, right? Our faith tradition would say we want peace, peace that passes all understanding, right? Science says that we need a nervous system that is settled. If she has a nervous system that is settled, her body will produce few stress hormones. As a result, by the time the fetus begins journeying down the birth canal, his or her body, or their body, may have learned that the world is a generally safe and settled place to be. But if the fetus's mom experiences trauma, or if her earlier trauma causes a variety of stress hormones, my God, y'all, to regularly get released into her body, her baby may begin life outside the womb with less of a sense of safety, resilience, and coherence. Zoe Carpenter sums this up in a simple, stark observation. Health experts now think that stress throughout the span of a woman's life can prompt biological changes that affect the health of her future children. Stress can disrupt immune, vascular, metabolic, and endocrine systems and cause cells to age more quickly. All of this suggests that one of the best things each of us can do, not only for ourselves, but also for our children and grandchildren, is to metabolize our pain and heal our trauma. Metabolize our pain and heal our trauma. Let me see how much more I have. We'll have to finish this part up next week. When we heal and make, when we heal and make more room for growth in our nervous systems, we have a better chance of spreading our emotional health to our descendants via healthy DNA expression. In contrast, when we don't address our trauma, we may pass it on to future generations, along with some of our fear, constriction, and dirty pain. This is why I do not beat my children. Now, this is not to suggest that I've not had stern talks and may have talked towards, some may feel like, ooh, that's too strong. This is not to say any of that. And this is not to say, of course, that they don't have any trauma. But this is just to simply say for us to think about what beating our children, what kind of trauma. So, and then all right, so let me just walk it back about the culture piece. So many of us have used this as an example. We might see non-Black people in a public space, non-Black folks in public spaces, really I'm talking about white folks, in public spaces, and the child might be like in what we would have been socialized to say is off the chain. The child may have just been like outrageous, like, oh my God, like OMG zers, right? And you type what the thing you say, right? We probably say something like, couldn't be me, child. Couldn't be me, because I would have yoked them up. Yes, I would. Or what they need is, they need their behind beat. That's what they need. Johnny needs his behind beat, because timeout does not work in Black communities. Those are trauma responses that we pass off as culture. So then we tell stories. Okay, so here are the memories. So then we tell stories. For instance, there's a story that I tell often, that I used to tell often, until even before reading this book, I realized while in therapy that I keep retelling some of these stories that are really trauma-induced, and I'm telling them like they're war stories. I mean, like stories like, every time we get around family, we tell these stories. And I'm like, it re-traumatizes me every time I hear this story. And one of them is that when I was little, maybe first or second grade, I wet the bed a long time, which is also, I'm realizing, a trauma response, y'all. A trauma response, I think, let me slow down because I'm just, all these revelations are coming. I went to bed till maybe I was like possibly 9 or 10. And I'm saying it was a trauma response because I didn't want to get up in the middle of the night, because in previous times, or at some point when I've gotten up in the past, I would hear my parents fighting, and hear and or see my mom being hit, and that moved to whomever the person she was dating. So getting up for me, it was not, and people used to say, you just being lazy, you don't want to get up and go to the bathroom. In my body, right, the response was just be still. Just be still, right? And so there was an incident where so as a result of wetting the bed, I wasn't allowed to have water after a certain time. And this time, and I also was never allowed to interrupt my mom while she was on the telephone, right? And so my mom was on the phone with her girlfriend. I wanted some water. It was after the time when I should have been, allowed to drink. And I just kept begging my mom for water. I want some water. I want some water. I want some water. And she told her girlfriend, she said, hold on, just hold on. She went in the kitchen and got this huge pot of water. I mean, it was like the pot you cook greens in. She filled it to the top with water, to the very top. And I'm looking at her like, what? And she comes bringing it in the living room, and she's sloshing it, the water sloshing all around. And she sat it in front of me, and she was like, you can't wait. You see me on the phone. You know you're not allowed to have any water, because you're not going to do anything but pee and blah. You so thirsty, you can't wait. Here, drink this water. And I was like, what? Girl, like in my mind, like, do what? So I'm like, well, can I have a cup so I can at least ladle it out? Like, and remember, I'm small, so I don't quite understand what's going on with this extreme lesson that I'm being served. She said, no, drink it. So here I am, like, lapping up water, like I'm bobbing for apples. And just that moment, like, she pushes my head in the water, like, you basically like a Kevin Hart, you gonna learn today. Now we retell that story, like she and I retell that story, we be cracking up, girl, because you wouldn't listen. And I had to show you, I had to tell you, girl, because you just wouldn't listen. And so, like, I had to say to her after therapy, I was like, girl, that shit was abusive. What the hell? Where did you come up with that shit? Like, who told you? What in your spirit was like, do this? But for her, someone who had been abused as a child, who grew up in the South, whose parent, who was born to two parents who were married to other people at the time she was conceived and born, whose mother left the South to go up north to work and left her with relatives who weren't kind to her, who abused her, who, if she was punished, would make her go to church and sit on the first pew with no shoes on. Her feet, she has memories of her feet just being dirty and dusty and having to sit on the first pew of church with no shoes on. These were trauma responses in her, being sexually violated multiple times in her life, and so all of this, carrying this, being domestically, my biological father being domestically violent with her while she's carrying me, all of this in her body that then gets passed on to me, right? That may come out differently, but then I pass that on, which is why then if I were to, and let me also back up for transparency. I'm not saying that I never spanked our children, but when I learned better, I started to do better, right? If we were to continue doing that, and this is also why I don't play people calling them, they grown or they sassy. I don't play that. Don't play that. Call them by their name or don't call them at all, because those are trauma responses, Ashe. And if we are not careful, we will keep this in our body. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, Reverend Angie. We will keep this in our bodies. And so I just wanted to offer that example because it is so clear. And so the clean pain for me was having to have a conversation with my mom, right? Because I wouldn't categorize her as an abuser. I wouldn't even say that I was abused, right? In the ways that we understand it. But now I understand that that was a type of abuse, that was not healthy, that was stressors, right? Those are, and so these are the things that what kind of memories, I guess, my question is, do we want to pass on from body to body? You all get what I'm saying? The kinds of memories. That's the question that's really being asked here, that we want to pass down from body to body. So I'm going to stop now because I'm on page 42. I'll pick up again. Yes. I will pick up, we will pick up. I want you to go ahead and continue. Hold on. Let me read this and then we'll pick it up in the clearing. Go over to, so I just explained figure 1, how trauma compounds. I just put it in my own words. So I just explained that. Now I'd like to explore, I'm going over to page 49. Now I'd like to explore, now I'd like you to explore how intergenerational trauma, I've just expressed this too, may have affected your life and body. You can do this by reflecting briefly on 4 events in the lives of your ancestors. Then we're going to take it over to the clearing. So let me post again. Y'all, this is so good. This is so good. Like, okay, I just posted it again. This is so good. Find a quiet, comfortable place. So I'm going to read these, but you'll need to go back and do this later. Find a quiet, comfortable place. You can be alone and undistracted for at least 15 minutes. Now consider these questions. When did your ancestors settle in America? Did they come here voluntarily, or were they refugees, servants, or enslaved people? Were they fleeing brutality, oppression, plague, war, or poverty? Did they come here in search of a better life? How old were they? How healthy were they? Was there a community or a group of relatives here to welcome and assist them? Did your ancestors speak English when they got here? What other language or languages did they speak? What possessions and skills did they bring with them, to the best of your knowledge? Were they hopeful or desperate, prosperous or poor? As far as you know, did any of your ancestors ever talk about the native people who arrived on this continent many centuries earlier? If so, what did they say? If you are an immigrant to America yourself, please respond to the question by reflecting on your own experience. The second question. What traumatic events directly affected your mother or your father? I just shared an example. How did each event affect them at the time? How did it affect the choices they made later? How did it affect the way that they raised you? Whew, my goodness. I feel it in my body. I feel sensations in my body right now. This is the effect it's having on me. The third question, what traumatic events directly affected your grandparents? Okay, I'm going to respond to this also. So I told you all that my mother was born to 2 people. So at the time she was conceived, my grandmother was married to someone who was, I think he might have been in the service or something. And my grandfather, my biological grandfather, was married to a woman who could not have children. So that's a whole nother trauma. And my grandmother and my grandfather, were having affairs. And my mother was conceived, always feeling then, and for those of you who've heard her minister before, she talks about having a wanting spirit, wanting, a wanting spirit, how all of her life she has always wanted, she has always had the desire or wanted, been in that space. And so, but my grandmother, her mother, my grandmother, Inez, my grandmother is the product of a rape, as it has been told to me, that my great-grandmother Mamie was 13 and that she was raped. I believe it because that's the story that was told to me, and yet I also wonder, was it that, or was she with someone and this is what they said it was? And I have many questions. At any rate, my grandmother never knew her biological father. She never knew his name. At least this is what she told me. She never knew his name, and she never saw him in her life. And even when my grandmother was in her 60s and 70s, she would share that with me. That was a hard spot for her. It was trauma. My grandmother then was also molested by a family member. And when my mother was born, my mother was molested by that same family member. The question is, what traumatic events directly affected your grandparents? So then, what would I expect for this type of trauma that has been passed down through the bodies of the generations of the women and men in my lineage? There is trauma then that I hold that doesn't belong to me, or that I don't even know when and where I picked it up. Further, if I can just say it, further, I had a conversation with my spouse yesterday, thanking him for the ways that he has been showing up for me, and also then going a step further and in my clean pain, having to apologize to say that I know that some of the things, some of the charges I've been giving you are trauma responses. So if I say you ain't never there, you don't, boom, it's just simply not true. And because your nervous system is settled, hey, God, because your nervous system is settled, you don't even take it and you don't appreciate it, but you don't take it in because you know it's just simply not true. The unsettled nervous system in me then keeps jabbing at you, jabbing at you, as if it's a part of my personality, i.e. speaking truth to power, telling you like it is, when really it's just this hurt little girl who is unsure or harmed about the way people, and in my case as a heterosexual woman, men and women engage intimately in intimate partnership, committed partnerships, because that trauma has been passed down to me. I just want to say something to somebody. I just want to say something to somebody. I just want to say something to somebody. And so what I realized, this is Pentecost, y'all. Yeah. What I realized is that as my husband and I are doing this work of One Love, the One Love Festival, go to the number one lovefestival.com. As we are doing this work, I heard him tell someone yesterday, we are doing this. I really initiated this for Melva. And I perked up. I was like, for Melva? Yeah, I initiated this for Melva because I wanted Melva to understand that she is an institution, and that if she doesn't want to deal with other institutions who cannot see or honor her gifts or value her for who she is, or for whom have such rules and so forth that thwart who she is, I want her to know that she doesn't have to, that we can create. And as a business person, as one who does this, I wanted to produce a future. But guess what, y'all? Guess what my running argument, my running trauma response used to be? I don't feel like you have my back. I'm just confessing because it's good for the soul. Because you know what I related having my back with? Listen, I'm helping some people today. Because you know what I equated having my back? If you don't clap back, if you don't tell people to get the F out my face, if you don't, tell your baby mama, if you don't, then you ain't riding with me. I need you to be in toxic masculinity. I need you to be ready to knock a nigga down. That's what I need. I need you to be arguing with me. Why are you so quiet? Say something. All trauma responses. And what I couldn't take was his settled nervous system sitting there looking at me like. So I had to, in this clean paint, I ain't want to do it. But for growth, I had to say, OMG. OMG, you have been there with me and through and all the time. You have never not had my back. You have never not been thinking about my good. You have never not been, trying to compromise my value. You have never not seen me. Those have been my trauma responses, Mel Chris. They have been my trauma responses. Yay, Jesus, hallelujah. They have been it has been the trauma in my body passed to me from generation to generation. And I have passed it off as the culture, the black women's culture of telling it like it is. When really, it's just been pain. I'm so full because this awareness. This awareness feels so good. It feels so good and it feels so light, and it's that my nervous system is becoming settled. My God. That my nervous system is becoming settled. This is the peace that you cannot buy. My nervous system is becoming settled. And now, after 17 years of being married and 27 years of these trauma responses, my God, that I can really lean into the beautiful person that I'm blessed to be in partnership with, and not operate and respond out of unhealed spaces and places. Hallelujah. Hey, thank you, God. That's it. That I got a new language. Come on, Pentecost. That in my mother tongue, Ashe. That I can understand him in his mother tongue. Come on, Ashe. Yeah, God, good God today. Y'all, I'm going to close it on that. I'm going to close it on that. My, what awareness. What awareness. This is the healing work. Listen, I'm just sharing my healing work with you all. I'm literally doing this work. This is the work that I am doing daily. I'm reading this. I'm reading The Body Keeps the Score. And I'm reading You Can Heal Your Life right now. And so I just want to say, yeah, for the next few weeks, come on and get into it. Come on and get into it with me so that we can do this together, Ashe. And before I go and head over to the clearing, the links have been provided for you. DigiDeacon Carlene and DigiDeacon Natasha have been providing them for you. They are there. Thank you so much. I want to say thank you first to those of you who have been supporting and who have been purchasing tickets. You can purchase tickets to the One Love Festival at the number one lovefestival.com. It is a 2-day event. So if you want to come to both nights, you need a ticket for Friday night and you need a ticket for Saturday night. They are sold separately. It's not a package deal. I need you all's assistance. We need your assistance. We need you, period. That's what I'm going to say about that. You can go to all of my social medias at One Love Festival, Facebook and Instagram, and get all of the information. For those of you who've been donating tickets, thank you very, very much. For those of you who desire to give because you won't be able to come, you can, tickets are $75 each. So you can purchase one, you can purchase two. Listen, if you're a pastor, you can purchase 50, you can purchase a block of them, right? Because as we are operating in our settled nervous system and stop not blaming other institutions and systems for what they haven't done and cannot do, trauma response, but moving into spaces where we are creating our own. Ashe. Let me tell you, and this is why Toni K. Bambara said, through her book, The Salt Eaters, do you really want to be healed? Do you really want, because it's not a trifling matter. For those of you who give via Venmo, I welcome you to do that. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. And for those of you who use Zelle, my email for Zelle is drmelvasampson@gmail.com. drmelvasampson@gmail.com. Look, I'm looking forward to being with you for a few more secs over here in the clearing before I have to jump off. It's 14 of y'all already waiting. All right, y'all, I'm going to end this now.